Good afternoon to some of you. Good morning to some of you. Good late afternoon to some of you. My name is John Carroll, and welcome to today's presentation of the inService podcast series, where we gather some of the leading experts across the field service, customer support, customer experience, and supply chain space to talk about the latest innovations that are happening across our respective market. Want to thank you very much for your participation and listenership, and want to encourage active participation. A lot of the goodness that comes from these things is where we have featured experts. We have an opportunity to really keep them on their toes and submit some questions and maybe even some reactions to some of the things you're hearing if they resonate with you. So want to encourage you, those that are listening on LinkedIn, where you have the opportunity to comment. Please do feel free to do so. We are LinkedIn Live approved, and so this is live streaming there. It's also on any of the other channels you subscribe to, whether it's YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Overcast, or whatever it is that you get your podcasts at. This session today is recorded, will be accessible post-event. You can share it with colleagues and use it as a resource for yourself. We're going to try and find our way somewhere in the 45 to 60-minute range here. Keep this as interactive as possible. And today's topic is bridging the physical and digital worlds. We've seen a lot of digital transformation, digitalization, digitization, digital transformation, modernization, all these different ways that we're talking about how we're changing our life digitally. And what does it mean to the business setting? And so it's a really important discussion. And I am incredibly pleased to be joined by one of our newest appointees to our technology advisory board and friend and colleague, Thomas Cottereau. Thomas is the CEO and founder of SightCall. Thomas, a huge warm welcome to you. Welcome to today's discussion.
Thank you. Very nice to be with you today.
Outstanding. So, we're going to go ahead and just jump right in. We have a planned question set, so we're going to jump right in. And Thomas, could you introduce yourself, personal and professional background, just a little bit of get to know today's podcast guest for our listenership?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Thomas, I'm the CEO and co-founder of SightCall. Well, originally from France, and I grew up in the French Alps. I grew up on skis, I would say. And then I spent good time of my career in France, working mainly for US companies. I started with UNET, MCI, WorldCom, a lot of big US internet service providers, telcos. And then I started SightCall out of Paris before moving to San Francisco, where I live since 10 years with my family. And the main reason for that is to launch a product from the Bay Area to be part of the global software ecosystem, being integrated with all of these large CRM, ERP that are built here.
That's outstanding. I'm a skier myself. I missed this season because I broke my leg. I'm in recovery here, but anxious to get back out there, and maybe we'll have to coordinate our personal calendars to sync on the mountain sometime. For those in the field service space, SightCall's become a recognizable brand, right? We all know you for what you do. But for our listenership who might not be necessarily familiar, could you perhaps give an overview of what it is you do, what is the application to the markets you serve, and maybe even a couple of examples of some of your critical and key customers? That would be helpful.
Yeah, so we are the leading visual assistance software company. So what is visual assistance? That's literally a market that we created, and we started the company almost 15 years ago now. Launched our product 10 years ago, and really created this space. And what is the concept behind visual assistance? It's a pretty natural and simple concept that is providing the ability to see and guide remotely. So, there's a lot of interaction that we all have every day where we cannot see what's happening on the other side. On most of the interaction today, B2B environment are still with just, chat or a phone call. And it leads to a lot of misunderstanding and a lot of also unnecessary dispatch, a lot of, also equipment's downtime because we don't know what the problem is. And so the vision and the promise of SightCall on the visual assistance is really to provide, to engage the person who is on site, the person who is in front of this equipment or in front of this device, in order to get them to have remote guidance. Because usually, field technicians are alone in the field. They went through trainings. Most of them are highly skilled, but it often happens to face situations that were not expected. And in these circumstances, what's the common way of doing is to call an expert or to call one of their peers to get some advice there. And what we do at SightCall is we really enrich and power this interaction by providing this ability to see remotely, and then to analyze. And that's where also we are integrating into a lot of other platforms like Salesforce, ServiceNow, ServiceMax, out of the large players, in field service, customer service interactions, in order to collect information, connect them to your digital asset, and then provide recommendation and guidance. And for this guidance, that's where we leverage a technology that is named augmented reality, so that the person remotely can also guide the person who is on site to perform some task and be successful. On the evolution of this space, and that's where we are now, is also to provide more and more self-guided experience, meaning that not only you can leverage your smartphone to show what's happening there to a remote expert, but also to an AI model. And this AI can also recognize and provide self-guided instructions. So that's really kind of the space with visual assistants. And in terms of customers and verticals, we have a massive traction in manufacturing. This is kind of natural because, each time you have a physical asset, that's where, SightCall makes a lot of sense. So that, the person who is in front of this machine, either for an inspection, a maintenance, a repair, or any type of, process that has to be done with this machine, that's where SightCall can be used for that. So manufacturing, we have, Fortune 500 customers, Fortune 2000 customers using it every day. Companies like SciEx who are doing measure equipments. These companies using SightCall globally with their field service organization, with this, remote visual assistance, but also now more and more with these self-guided experiences to identify parts and get, for example, automatic replacement of these parts. So visual assistants on manufacturing are kind of a natural fit. And there are some other ones that we also discovered along this interesting journey, like insurance. Insurance kind of came to us in a way that we started to work, with retailers, with customer service, field service, and then this insurance use case became kind of natural, replacing the on-site visit of a field adjuster by a video assessment done directly between the desk adjuster and the end consumer, right? So the policy.
Outstanding.
So
outstanding.
Love to say that, we love also to break this barrier that is always there and could be an interesting topic to discuss on between a lot of field service and customer service. In the evolution of the world today, the person who is on site, the person who is facing this challenge is usually very open to get engaged into new process and to also be part of this diagnosis, troubleshooting, or even repair by themselves, because the key value for them before is time on their time. Can this be fixed immediately?
Outstanding.
And in today's world, the best answer is not always to answer that your best technician will be there tomorrow morning first time, But in today's connected world where everybody has a smartphone, they expect an immediate answer. And that's also where, this new type of technology come into play to be able to provide immediate contextual solution to the person who is in front of the problem.
Outstanding. Thank you very much for the overview. And let's go into the topic du jour. And first, I want to reflect on some of the recent research data that we've been acquiring as we've plugged in with service and field service leaders, most recently in our 2023 Service Leaders Agenda survey. And I want to get your reaction to the data, but the key focus area highlighted by those that responded to the survey for the next 12 months included service operations performance management, so efficiency gains across the organization. But then behind that was innovation, followed by expansion of their portfolio and customer experience initiatives. So a little bit unique from yesteryear, and we kind of summarize it in the way that these trends are kind of bifurcated into two major themes. Internally speaking, there seems to be this preservation mindset, right? We've heard all about the labor shortage. We've heard all about the capacity issues. We've heard all about the financial headwinds. How can we hunker down? So there seems to be a preservation mindset internally in terms of employee engagement. One of my personal colleagues, Elizabeth Dixon, former head of Chick-fil-A, delivered a keynote at our symposium last year around how the customer experience is the overflow of the employee experience, right? So there's a big focus on preserving the employee experience in many regards. Externally speaking, on the other side, we're seeing a lot of how do we avoid commoditization? How do we continue to innovate with the customer? How do we, we saw this meeting of the customer in that remote setting. What's next? What is the customer expecting as we move forward continually into this digital world, if you will? So there's a big focus on not only meeting the future customer, but then innovating around what you present to the customer in terms of service offerings. What do you make of some of these trends? What are your viewpoints on some of those summary findings?
I think there's a big focus right now on these two topics. One, if I would sum it in one word, would be efficiency.
Yeah.
This is a real challenge. At the end of last year, I decided to travel the world to go meet with our top customers. They are in all continents. So I left home for 2 months and went to visit with them. I can tell you that this trend that you mentioned here in the current economic context, this trend of efficiency and also leveraging the internal resources, but having to do more with less is a common trend that I saw everywhere in the world. So how can we continue to deliver the best customer service experience while having this pressure on cost, on resources, and with also this talent shortage that we are facing in field service organizations? It's interesting to see that nowhere in the world it's different. It's really a common place. So that's why for me, this is very natural that there is this combination of focusing on the resources, the team that we have, because they are critical to achieve this mission, while also focusing on the experience delivered to customers. And their expectations changed. That's another challenge, that not only we are facing this pressure, the economic pressure, but also a higher expectation from each and every customer that are requesting more, I would say, more immediate solution to any question, to any problem. We are in this world, this mobile first world, where when you want to order something on Amazon, you just take your smartphone and by 3 clicks, you already have it in your cart, and it's going to be delivered tomorrow. That's the kind of service that they would expect. When you want a driver, you click on Uber and you've got the car and you can track the car coming. And that's also the kind of service that they would expect now in field service. And when this machine is not working as expecting. They want to have the full experience as they would have in their personal life.
Absolutely. Consumerization continues to kind of find its way into the business setting where customers are attempting DIY, do it yourself, self service. They're placing greater demands on the provider for immediacy of service delivery, intelligent service delivery that's remote. Service delivery that's proactive and predictive so that you avoid issues prior to them happening. We're seeing the same things. I think your viewpoints are spot on with where the market's heading. Let's go ahead and dive into today's topic in terms of converging of physical and digital worlds. Where have we come from? What is the state of technology? Why have there been major efforts to establish this convergence? Can you talk a little bit about that? And before you do, Thomas, I'm going to encourage our listening audience to react or submit questions to Thomas or myself, and we can try and fit our way into responding to those as we go throughout today's discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I grew up in a world where I thought that IoT would be everywhere. Remember, 20 years ago, we thought that each and every equipment would be connected and would communicate to the internet. I was even at UNet managing, building, growing the internet infrastructure back at the end of the 90s, where we worked on IPv6. On why was this big transformation from IPv4 to IPv6? The reason for that was because we knew that we would need an IP address for each thing, right? And on that, IPv4 would not provide us enough IP addresses to not only connect humans, but also connect all of the things to the internet. So we had this big, move, etc. Unfortunately, 20 years later, IoT did not go mainstream. And we are still in this world where most of the equipments that our field service teams have to manage, maintenance, install every day are not connected to the internet. Or there's just a part of them that is connected, just this one screen that would display, the information around it, but all of the other parts, all of the other components of these big machines are not connected today. So that's the challenge that we had to overcome, knowing that we want to be able to be more proactive, to service of this equipment better, but that these equipments are not into this digital world yet. So how to create a bridge between this equipment there and all of the tools that we have. And when I mention the tools, is all of these software applications that we have on our computers, on smartphone, in our business day. So it can be, your CRM, your field service management software, ERP, asset management, and there's a lot, because each of them have their own specificity that would help you, your CRM with your customer on customer contract. Your asset management is most of the time, still today, unfortunately, not directly connected to your CRM. So you have to go to another software and find the inventory of parts that you have in there. And then this equipment, which is not connected to any of them. So what we found is that a good way to connect these two worlds was with a human, because that's the person who is here on site and has the equipment in front of them on one hand, on the other hand, have their smartphone in the palm of their hand with all of these digital tools in there. By leveraging some unique capabilities of our smartphones that we all have in our pocket today, which are the back camera of the phone, the screen of the phone, and also the computing power of this phone and connectivity that they have. That's where we created this bridge. So the camera is used to see, identify the parts, the equipment that is in front of this technician. So we are now creating this bridge through this camera with either, again, this human experience, because someone remotely knows exactly what this part of this equipment is and can tell you what's going on, or an AI engine that can identify and also tell you and help you with this part, and also update and connect all of these assets to the digital software that you have. It can be the asset management, the CRM, the field service management software. Everything can be done in the context of this work order that the technician is working on at this time. So you can start of see this bridge, right, between the equipment that you have in front of your technician or the end customer, on all of these tools that are today in the cloud, but that are made available through the smartphone via the camera on this advanced capability that we developed to connect them together.
Outstanding, outstanding. And one of the things as we reflect on the research data further, in terms of the impediment to some of these digitalization efforts that you're talking about, is the integration of technologies together into one sort of digital platform, single pane of glass. There's been a lot of modernization efforts, right? But the threading together of these technologies, there seems to be some siloed nature to the experience, not only for the customer but also for the employee delivering service and support. You could start an instance in a remote setting, then to transition to a dispatch centric setting. There's some clunkiness in many regards. So the 41% of service leaders cite the integration of technology into functional process workflows as the greatest inhibitor to witnessing value from a technology investment. Are you seeing some of these same things within your customer sets, and are you helping to alleviate some of those integration challenges?
So it's funny because I remember our last Service Council symposium in Chicago, where
Yes.
you had these two groups, right? The technology group that came into the room where the field service leader were, and you were getting out of this large discussion with the field service leader, asking them, "Hey, how can the technology group can help you better in your transformation journey?" The first thing that came up was this integration. I remember, this first answer was, "Hey, can you guys work together, interconnect together, make sure that all of these technology, these tools, software can interact with each other?" So
Yes.
I I think that's a very fair point. When you have to service equipments, your job is not to work in interconnecting software. So I agree that it's part of our responsibility as a software provider to work on that. So what's the state of the art today? The state of the art is really most of the software moved to the cloud. You have all of these cloud platforms, cloud applications that are now available from anywhere. But it should not prevent them to interconnect with each other. If you remember 20 years ago, when you would deploy all of your IT on-prem, you would have a big IT team. You would usually use system integrators, long project to interconnect everything, to build your IT system that would fit your business needs. And that was massive project, took a lot of time, etc. Now that it's in the cloud, we kind of moved this responsibility to the cloud service providers, where we have to interconnect with each other. And the goodness is that there are very standard protocols right now that we can all use to create APIs. So APIs are really these connectors that we can use to interconnect systems together. It's pretty well, defined right now how we interconnect with each other. So I think that the technology is here. I would say the smart platforms are also leveraging this type of API first momentum. And we have, each time we meet with a new, provider that we have to interconnect with, if they respect, these standards, it's very straightforward. It literally takes, a couple of hours to get the platforms connected together. So I think we are at this stage where today, the technology, the normalization is there. There's still a challenge of process and definition of what should flow from one system to another, because we also have to protect all of the information asset of our customers, and we want to make sure, and our customers want to make sure that their data would not flow from one system to another and can be used on even act in a wrong way. So that's where we have to implement more, processes, security layers to make sure that there's a good control of this data flows between all of these entities. And I even see that even more and more now, where we create kind of geofencing between different regions, like between Europe and the US, where some data in Europe, because of GDPR, have to stay in Europe. Some others in the US have to stay in the US. And so that's why we also created, as part of the cloud, these geofencing capabilities where you define for which customer, which type of user, on how you want this data to flow and circulate across them, or even with other service provider that they would leverage. So the short answer is, on the technology side, I think we are there. We can do it today. We can interconnect with everything that has an API. And it's not that complex. And it goes fast, should not cost much. Now, really, the point is, this process and the good definition of how it should work, how it should be protected, how it should flow, and how it should be displayed and stored.
Yeah, and there's a lot of considerations for asset manufacturers thinking about, from cradle to grave, the whole asset life cycle in terms of design, manufacture, support, end of life, all those things. There's a whole set of process workflows that build across that life cycle that are considerations in terms of data flowing to and from, in terms of the consideration there. So let's get into the next point. We've been throwing around some terms, and everybody has modernization, digital transformation. You've got digitization, you've got digitalization. There's so many different terms and terminologies. Can you just talk for our listening audience? What do each of these things mean to you, and are there examples that you could provide that kind of differentiate one from another?
Yeah. So if I look at these terms, the first one is digitization.
Yep.
So digitization is something that happened a lot, in the past 20 years, where you had all of these paper manual that you wanted to convert into a digital manual. So a lot of scanning of all of these large books to get them into PDF and make them available to, the employees when they need them, or even the customer when they even need them, through their smartphone or computer whenever they need them, instead of having to ship a book, right? So that was really the big digitization era. I still see in the field a lot of paper on pens. So we are not 100% done with digitization, but I think we are already well advanced in this process. The second one that happened after is more of the digitalization, right? So what is that? It's really developing processes, changing workflows to improve this manual task. So we are taking the digitization to another layer, which is more about workflow processes on improving tasks that are done. So really, you take this manual action that you had to do in the past, and now you see how it can be more streamlined, managed either directly by by a machine or more guided and processed through a digital tool for the person to follow this process. So that's the digitalization. And then the third layer is the digital transformation. So digital transformation is a terminology that is maybe has been used too much, right? We know that it's all over the place. You see a digital transformation because that's kind of the holy grail, right? Everybody wants to go through this digital transformation. So what is this digital transformation? It's all about, leveraging this knowledge and integrating this knowledge into business area to enhance the engagement and create new value. So you take really what you have, what you do today, and you bring it to another level through digital to create new value, new value offerings, etc. So that's typically what we would do when we help our customer create a new level of service that they can offer to their customer to provide, for example, 24/7 service thanks to visual assistants, where instead of having to dispatch a technician on site, now you can have someone in one expertise center to provide guided experience on a 24/7 matter that you could not do with your technicians, right? So we even see some customers deploying some expertise center with kind of a follow the sun model, where you have 3 different locations around the world, so that even if it's 4 a.m., it's always daylight somewhere in the world. And you can connect with someone who can also help you and guide you through that. So that's where you create these new processes and services and new value also to your customer and to the chain.
Thomas, I appreciate you putting yourself out there and creating what sounds like a digital transformation maturity roadmap for our listenership. So good kudos to you for helping to put your own definitions out there in terms of digitization versus digitalization versus transformation. So kudos. Let's go ahead and shift into the business applications of converging physical and digital worlds. I talked about asset lifecycle management and manufacturers and the impact that you can make across design, manufacturing, and then service value chains. Let's go ahead and look at some of those areas, really specific to the customer service side of things, if you will. Within customer experience, service organizations are, in my opinion, enthusiastically meeting customers in the channel preference that customers want to be met at, which is remote, self-serve, and that whole DIY attempt, if you will, can be tricky and scary in some instances, especially when you have sophisticated assets. But I still think that there's an importance of meeting the customer for the purpose of triage and diagnosis and all the good things that can happen as a result of that. We hear a focus on reducing time to resolution to create happier customers and the whole cost reduction, right? That's part of the justification of doing so. The other is again circling back to the employee, the customer experience is an overflow of the employee experience. Increasing workforce utilization rates, doing more with less, but also increasing their experience in the delivery of service, making it easier on your technicians and frontline is another key focus. How do you see the convergence of digital and physical worlds impacting the customer experience? Do you see some of the same things that I just highlighted?
Yes, absolutely. So what do we see? We see that by connecting these two worlds, you can first get a better communication on information. I met with one of our customers last month, and they shared the fact that not having their asset management connected to their CRM was one of their pain points, because they would, have a customer who calls them and say, and they would identify, thanks to SightCall, that this part needs to be replaced. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, they would tell the standard, point to the customer, the new part should arrive within 1 or 2 weeks. And actually, this answer worked before the COVID, when the parts on the delivery were kind of fluid. During the COVID period, they had some challenge with parts delivery. And then this answer was not valuable anymore. And they would have the customer to call back, the week after or 2 weeks later, say, you told me I should receive my part within 2 weeks. I don't have it. So, I'm sorry. Maybe it should come this week, but they had no visibility in there. And then this could happen 10 times in a row because some parts would, during this period of time, could take over 10 weeks to be delivered. So again, creating these connections in there directly impact the customer experience and made their customer upset just because they could not provide the right traceability of the parts delivery there to this one customer. You can imagine how unhappy was this customer when after 12 weeks, where he was calling this customer support agent every week to get to know where the part was, he received it. So if now you think about this story another way,
yep.
If this customer service agent had access to this traceability, he would have set the right expectation upfront, explain that, hey, right now we're experiencing some challenge with part delivery. Unfortunately, it will not be delivered before 12 weeks. And by the way, I will inform you and you will receive, some message to let you know when the part leaves the warehouse and it's going to be delivered to your home, right? That's the new customer expectation. You don't want to be blind anymore. So again, connecting the systems and communicating them up to the customer is how you evolve, the experience that you deliver. So that's just one experience, but thousands of them. There's one statistic that I loved in one of the last survey that you've done. I remember this survey about part management, part delivery that was done by the Service Council last month. And where this, I think there's one statistic where you mentioned that 24% of the unsuccessful service visit are due to not having the right part on site.
Correct.
So this is a perfect example of things that we can fix, right? By connecting these two words, because this part is this physical asset. And why would the technician go on site without having the right part? And there can be 50 different, circumstances there, but it should not happen. If we were able to track this part, to identify this part, to connect the system together, and to make sure that when this technician would go on site, the part would be there. And not only the part would be there, but that this part would be the right part that fits to this equipment. And again, by, for example, scanning the serial number of this part, creating some correlations between the serial number and the equipment that you have there, the version of it, on making all of the back-end check to make sure that, yes, when you're going to go on site, this part will be there and it will be the right part so that you can be successful. All of these kind of problems that we can solve today by connecting all of these physical assets to your digital systems.
Yeah, just to further build on that point that you make there around the dispatch success, first time fix rate achievement, and the causal nature of not having the right part in terms of the unsuccessful visit. We asked last year, and we're about to launch our Voice of the Field Service Engineer survey actually next week, where we go to the front line and ask them, what do you spend most of your day doing? What functionality would you like? Well, last year, technicians told us that the number 1, 3, and 5 feature that they would ask management for would be inventory visibility, the ability to order parts, and the ability to transfer parts from truck stock inventory to and from a colleague. So the importance of parts in the equation of service delivery and meeting the customer expectation, setting the customer expectation, then meeting it, it couldn't be more critical. And technicians are telling us that, and service leaders are telling us it being one of the leading causes to erosion of first-time fix rate. So Just a lot of signals pointing in that same direction, if you will. And in fact, let's build off of the frontline view a little bit further.
Mhm.
According to the Voice of the Field Service Engineer survey last year, we saw that 54%, 65%, and 67% of Gen Z, Y, and X did not have a commitment to their profession, meaning that they were unlikely to stay and remain in the career of a field service technician for the duration of their career. So the labor market continues to be tricky, right? There's capacity issues. We've got scarcity of skill sets. We've got knowledge requirements becoming greater, just compounding that challenge of available skill set. Can you talk about how the field service engineer has changed, how the role of the engineer has changed and become more difficult? And can you share a little bit of the potential impact of the convergence of the physical and digital world to make the job easier for our technicians?
Yeah, I will continue on the example that we were on with these
Sure,
technicians going on site and not having the right part.
sure.
Uh, so first, there is an impact on the customer, and that's where again everything is connected there. When the customer is expecting to get this technician, we will be there tomorrow to fix his problem.
Hmm.
Technician comes, hallelujah, he's here, he's gonna make it work, and my problem will be solved. And when unfortunately does not have the right part and cannot get the equipment back to work, it seriously impacts the customer and the customer satisfaction. Say, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I do not have the right part, I'll come back tomorrow. Oof, that's a big hit. But not only it impacts the customer, but it also impacts our technician.
Yep.
Because everybody loves to get the job done and to be successful into that job. And I think, you can take across each and every type of work. We all love to get things done and done successfully. And when you set them into a situation where, unfortunately, they cannot be successful, imagine you come back home this night, right?
Hmm.
The dinner with family and say, all right, how was your day? Well, I spent 5 hours in my truck getting to this factory floor there, was ready to do the repair, but I didn't have the parts. So I went into my truck back and drove these other 3 hours back home. I'm going to go back tomorrow. How do you feel about this day? I think it was a bad day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we really impact again in this process on how we make technicians successful. We impact the morale, we impact the culture. I've seen organizations really shifting the culture into a culture where technicians must be successful.
Yeah.
So we took this example with the part here, but I can give you another one with typically the remote video assistance, where now even this young technician that is new to the job, you tell him a very different thing.
Yeah.
Before you would tell him, hey, you didn't have the training, you're a rookie. If you don't know how to do that, we're going to get an expert to come the day after and they'll do it because you're too young. Now you're shifting the culture and you tell everyone when you're on site, if you cannot, finalize, if you cannot get successful at this job, contact an expert, reach out, press this button and get connected to someone who can see, who can have all of the context of your work order, all of the data associated to that, mapping it to the equipment and providing you the exact guidance to make you successful. So it's literally shifting a lot of different, triggers that we have in the culture, in the organization of the field service teams.
Yeah.
And I believe that all of these shifts that we are, helping here are also helping, this retention.
Yep.
Because again, if you are successful every day in your day life, why would you change? But if you're set for failure, then that's where your head starts to look around and say, well, I don't really like this company. So again, we can impact out of this chain. Obviously, we have this talent shortage. We know it's tough because everybody would dream today to just work from home and never get out and just get a couple of Zoom meeting for your day and then your day is done. But I think that this is a beautiful profession, and a lot of people that I meet in field service choose this job because they love to be on site.
Yeah,
they are highly skilled. And another thing that we can do for them, and I think that's coming from another survey that you've done, where you ask, okay, what is the one thing that you really don't like in your job? If we could remove one thing, what would it be? And I think I remember the answer number one was, can you remove the administrative tasks?
Mm-hmm.
So that's another way where we can also impact their job. Why?
Yeah.
Because when we connect these two worlds, then you do not ask anymore the technician to feel, their system. And when they go back home, to connect to their field service management software and to write, out of the description of this maintenance or repair on what did they do, on what's the part they replace, and blah, 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 blah. All of this work that they hate. I would too, spending my day fixing this machine and then getting back home and having homeworks. It's not, the thing why I took this job. I took this job to repair this machine, but I'd love to get my job done when it's done.
Yep.
So what we can do when we connect these words is really taking all of the information from the equipment. Like we use a technology that is called optical character recognition. So optical character recognition is a technology that identifies each number or character, like the serial number of these parts.
Interesting.
From a picture that would convert it into letter and numbers. And then these letter and numbers, we can map them to the asset management system or CRM or ERP, etc., that you need there, and identify what's the part, and even update automatically your systems.
Yeah.
Because that thanks to just the fact that the technician went with their smartphone over this part for a couple of seconds, automatically all of the systems can be updated seamlessly. And that's where we, again, completely transforming this job, removing this task that today they do not like and that they should not do anymore, because these words are connected. And we grab directly information from what we see and update all of the systems with that.
You're talking about what we have been tracking as a trend is this parallel between customer and employees, from the standpoint of, we've seen customer experience evolve to this customer effort methodology, where it's how challenging is it for a customer to seek and receive support. I don't know about you, but I had a self-service chat bot experience that it was just remarkably painful. And it was more challenging for me to go through the steps. Yes, it was more accessible, but it was more painful for me to go through the steps to educate the chat bot before they even knew who I was, before they started to solve my issue, which was like really quick. And so if not done right, the customer effort, moving to an effortless experience for the customer is something we see translating into the employee experience. And as a strategy, we've heard about upskilling and reskilling, right? How do you supplement knowledge for the technicians, because assets are becoming more sophisticated and all the requirements of information in the field to be effective? Well, we call it a technician agnostic platform. And, so that you eliminate the need for that senior expert on your team to go to the single instance that's always the more sophisticated type, that you can empower them through access to information and capability, so that anybody can, not anybody, but, those technicians that might be lower in skill set might be able to be supplemented to be more just as effective as that senior engineer. and there's a lot of movement that we're hearing in terms of subordinating the service experience and looking at, you know, introductory level engineers on these issues, senior engineers on those issues. Well, these things are starting to mingle a little bit more so because of these technician agnostic platform strategies that we're seeing more prevalent in the marketplace, that upskilling, reskilling, and knowledge empowerment. I want to move into one other area. We're going to probably run out of time. We might not get to all of our questions we planned, Thomas, but I've enjoyed this discussion. And I want to focus on cost reduction opportunities because you talked about doing more with less. We all know the cost of service, especially in a dispatch centric environment, is quite extensive. It can be, based on our estimates, we've done some research, anywhere from $250 to $2,500 plus, depending on the density of customers, depending on the disposition of assets. Does it require a flight? Does it require a multi-day visit? It starts to scale out of control in terms of the cost of dispatch. That's one area of cost. The other area of cost is, we've talked about technicians getting stuck and all these sophisticated systems that help them get unstuck, yet we're still dependent on phoning a friend. 81% of technicians still phone a friend. And when that happens, what happens. Two technicians get stuck, and doing more with less kind of goes out the window, right? Where we're seeing efficiencies go down and utilization go down. And we've done some analysis in terms of what that means to an organization, and it's quite significant. If anybody wants to apply it, we did it based on 500 technicians, 400 technicians, 300, 200, and 100. And if 20% of your staff gets stuck on a daily basis, the cost reduction opportunity is just massive. Are you witnessing some of the above trends in terms of phoning a friend and avoiding dispatch? Can you just talk a little bit about how does SightCall customers justify when they make an investment in your technology? They're solving many of these issues. What are some of the impacts that you're making in terms of cost reduction?
Yeah, very good topic. I love this one because that's definitely today one of the key driver, and everybody wants to measure the value of the new system that you implement, which makes complete sense. And we love to implement metrics, dashboards, reporting to measure this value. I can tell you that with most of our customers, the ROI is demonstrated in less than 2 months. Your numbers are absolutely right. The cost of a truck roll would go from these $250 to over $2,500, depending on the distance, the duration, etc., on the type of transportation. So it's a pretty simple calculation that we can do there each time we save a truck roll. So that would be the number one. What's the average number that we see across the board in there? I can tell you that the customers, the large field organization who perform this digital transformation, as we've defined with solution like SightCall, would literally cut more than 50% of their truck rolls.
Wow.
So that was not even my goal when I started the company. But I discovered it later. This number is massive.
Yeah.
So why can we have such a massive impact? And what I saw across these deployments is that most of the on-site visit are not an on-site visit where you effectively perform a physical action, a physical repair on the machine.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of pre-visit,
Mm-hmm.
troubleshooting, post-visit, inspections, or even then there's also all of these ones that are not successful the first time.
Sure.
So if you aggregate all of them and you consider that now you can even do these pre-visit or assessment remotely, engaging the customer directly on the person who is in front of the equipment in this pre-assessment call,
Mm-hmm.
already saving an on-site visit most of the time, and allows you to collect all of the information that you need because what's interesting is that this customer also has a smartphone, and you can also leverage their smartphone, even if they are not within your organization, to collect the information that you need. So typically these optical character recognition or AI image recognition capabilities that I mentioned are also made available through their smartphone. So you can just, through their smartphone, identify exactly which part is there, which equipment you have, what's the problem in there, and collect all of this data so that you make sure that when the day after or in the same day, the technician will go on site, they know exactly what's going on. They know exactly the part that they need, the tools that they need to be successful there.
Sure.
So that's how, going through these type of experiences, we are pretty, amazed to see this massive impact that is translated on one side into customer satisfaction. The other side, as we discussed about even the employee on the field force satisfaction, but also a massive ROI. On the last part that we didn't discuss, but that I love, is also the sustainability in terms of the carbon footprint. We now generate also, a CO2 report for our customers. On each time we save an on-site visit, we map it to a global database where we calculate the distance based on the type of vehicle that they have, on the type of road that you have to go through. We know the gas consumption that you would have, and even the carbon footprint that is getting out of that. So saving this on site would also have a very strong impact on our planet. So it's really the combination of these four impact there that are creating the kind of I would say the beauty of the model.
Thomas, we didn't get to some critical areas. We're going to have to make this part one of part two, a series of podcasts. I'd love to welcome you back where we could get into training and knowledge, the impact of the physical and digital world convergence on training and knowledge and revenue generation, and on the connection between manufacturing and engineering and service, and how do those things kind of flow together in terms of interoperability and the flowing of data. Can we welcome you back at some point to pick up on some of those topics as a part two? Is that something you're willing to do?
Absolutely, whenever you want, John.
All right. And for our listening audience, before we leave, I'd love to understand what's next for SightCall. You introduced the company and the impact you're making across our discussion. What's next for SightCall?
Oh, the big thing that we work on is really continue this journey and continue to bring our customer through this digital transformation journey, starting from this remote video assistance and then building more and more automation as part of it, right? Out of this advanced AI, and we invest a lot on image recognition based on image analysis, tracking, again, to provide more and more insight to the person who is on site, customer or technician, and bring them more and more value through their smartphones or even connected devices like glasses, and continue to improve also the self-guided experience. So this self-guided experience is also adding now more and more augmented reality, 3D object, so that when you detect that you have this task to perform, as you are doing today with someone remotely who is guiding you and explaining you what to do, then the AI engine can drive you and explain you exactly how to perform this maintenance or replace this part. So that's really in place, and we are deploying more and more, customer through this journey of now self-guided experiences, as we call them. And the combination between the two of them is really what is creating, a successful path with them. Because as you said, we hate getting stuck into a chatbot or into an IVR on all of the things. And everybody hates this kind of experience. So SightCall on this press of a button to get connected to a real person with a real knowledge that can even see and guide you within the context of what you're doing will stay there.
I just added guided workflows and self-guided workflows to our part 2. How's that? Thomas, for our listening audience, one last final thing to get to know you a little bit better outside of all the impact you're making at work and with SightCall. Tell us something about yourself personally. And by the way, I just want to express to you our gratitude for being a board member of the Service Council. You've made a huge impact in a very short period of time. So it's been a very rewarding relationship for us. And thank you very much for all your contributions.
Yeah. So thank you, because again, I love what you're doing. As you can see, I read your surveys, I read your reports.
You do?
It's very insightful for us to help us better know, our customers and how we can impact positively this market. On maybe a personal fact, as I told you, I grew up in the French Alps. I still love the mountains. And next month, I'm going to be on a mountain bike trip, starting from the south of France and crossing the Alps to end up in Italy with a group of friends with kind of pretty technical single tracks. And I think it's going to be a good kick of adrenaline there.
Awesome. Well, take lots of pictures and please share it with our community. And thank you once again for joining. He is Thomas Cottereau. He's the CEO and founder of SightCall. He's a friend and colleague, a board member of the Service Council. He'll be present at the Service Council's Smarter Services Symposium later this year in September. Save the date, September 11th through the 13th in Chicago, once again at the JW Marriott. We broke records last year with 300 plus attendees. We plan to do even more this year. So today's episode will be available on our website. It's also available at any of the podcast channels you subscribe to. It's also available and accessible on LinkedIn. Thank you once again, Thomas. And we will be putting on a part 2 with Thomas to dive into some of the areas we didn't get to today. Thank you once again for our listening audience, and we'll see you on the next episode. Appreciate you.